Hello, I'm Robert. I'm talking again about why this Nibiru thing is nonsense. And it is just complete humbug. They make up things that don't make any sense. They don't even know enough about astronomy to lie about it. They just take ideas from astronomy and mix it together in a great big bag, as it were, and then pull out whatever comes first, and then change it so it fits their ideas. And so just a few examples. They often mention that in 1983, now that's a long time ago when our equipment was much less good than it was now. It was the very first telescope to look in a particular wavelength in the far infrared. And they found some hot spots that they didn't know what they were. And then the astronomers back then, when they were asked about that, they said, what is it? And they said, well, it could be distant galaxies, could be gas clouds in our galaxy, it could be planets, we just don't know. It was soon proved that they weren't planets because they didn't move. So they then cite that as evidence that they discovered Nibiru. Just because back then they didn't know what they were until they found out that they weren't planets. And then another example of the things that they cite, then they frequently cite these papers about Nemesis, or at least newspaper stories that talk about the researches about Nemesis. So Nemesis, it has now been disproved, and it was originally thought that they came across it because they were looking at mass extinctions. So you can look at the first paper. It's a paper about periodic mass extinctions, which happen every 26 million years, approximately, or at least so they claimed anyway. And the last one was 15 million years ago, so the next one would be 11 million years into our future. And you can just go and read that paper and see that that's exactly what they're talking about. And then in order to try and explain that, then they had the hypothesis of a star which would have to be in a 26 million year orbit, otherwise why would it be a 26 million year cycle of extinctions? And in order to do that, it would be a third of a light year away, way out, they thought even beyond the Oort cloud, far beyond any comets that we were able to detect. And so they then changed that 26 million years into 3,600, which of course makes total nonsense of the thing, because we haven't had mass extinctions every 3,600 years. And then they made it so this planet, or star rather, instead of being a third of a light year away, they said it comes into the inner solar system, which is on an almost 3,600 year orbit. And if it comes into the inner solar system on the 3,600 year orbit, it's basically going pretty much straight, almost in a straight line back and forth. And that's just an impossible orbit for a planet to keep up for any length of time because of the influence of Jupiter. So either Jupiter will send it, if it's lighter than Jupiter, a lot lighter than Jupiter, it'll eventually either hit Jupiter, hit the Sun, or be thrown out of the solar system, or be broken into lots of pieces. If it's bigger than Jupiter, or similar in size to Jupiter, then the whole of the inner solar system would just fall apart. Because it's like a big wrecking ball coming in and out, and sometimes you might be lucky and miss and not go anywhere near Jupiter. When it's reasonably close to any of the planets, it'll just change their orbits so they become more elliptical. Eventually, some of the planets would be ejected from the solar system, some would hit the Sun, some would hit Jupiter, and nothing would be in a nice circular orbit like it is now. You can do simulations and see how that happens. And it doesn't matter what angle it's coming into the solar system either. If you've got a big long, it's like a wrecking ball hitting a building. It's just the whole thing falls apart. So that's obviously not happened. If anything like that did happen, then it was in the very early solar system, in the first few 100 million years before everything settled down, and these things just can't exist anymore. So you can see they've just taken these. They take these ideas and they just completely. Maybe they never read the papers. Maybe they did read them and they haven't got a good memory for figures, and they read 26 million years and then they think that they read 3,600. I have no idea. And then they keep changing these numbers, and then now people have been saying on my blog, actually it's 360 years. I mean, if it's 3,600 years, why then is it suddenly 360 years? They're just making up numbers. So why are any of you, why does anybody believe any of this stuff? And I mean, as I said in my article, that I showed lots of reasons why we absolutely know the area around the Sun very well. the area between Earth and Jupiter, from Jupiter to Earth inwards and inwards to about Venus or so, we know all the objects of about 10 kilometers or larger. And then inside of Mercury, when it's very close to the Sun, we know everything, that we know that there's nothing there larger than 60 kilometers. We've got very good telescopes. We're continually looking to see if we can find anything in this region. And there's nothing there. There's nowhere at all that we could miss a planet. And they're talking about planets as big as Jupiter sometimes, and sometimes they talk about an entire other solar system. And I mean, we at the time that they did this Nemesis thing, then they're talking about Nemesis as being a third of a light year away, and at that point there was a possibility that there could be a star as near as that if it was a very faint star. But we've now got very good instruments. We've had a space telescope with looking in the far infrared, and it can spot brown dwarfs which are very faint, many light years away, even if they're not attached to any star at all. So it's now thought, I think, pretty certain that there aren't any extra stars. So it was quite reasonable that our Sun could have had a second star, because many stars are binary, and they could have had a second star, but it seems it doesn't have one. And you can understand why as well, because when you have got two stars, one orbiting another, then that makes it a little bit harder for planets to form. If the two stars are close together, then unless they're very close, you would get planets orbiting them both. So you could have two stars close together with planets orbiting them both. Or you could have two stars a long way apart with planets orbiting one of them, but the second star makes it more difficult for planets to stay in a nice circular orbit. And if you've got planets in an orbit that goes out to beyond Pluto and then back to the inner solar system, then the atmosphere freezes out when it's out beyond Pluto. And it's going to make it very difficult for any form of life to last there, especially forms of life like us. So just that we are here, it's not so surprising that because we're here, that we're in a solar system with only one star, and with the other one either too far away to see or not there at all. Because it's very unlikely that beings like us would evolve in a solar system with a star with an orbit like Nemesis one. So even though such solar systems may be quite common in the galaxy, they probably don't have beings like us on them, orbiting them, except in very unusual circumstances. So, what else to say? The other thing was all about these so-called observations. I mean, they take photographs of clouds, they take photographs of any bright light that they see in the sky, and then their very first guess is, this is Nemesis. Now this is a planet. So you see a bright light in the sky, and that's not your first guess that this is a new undiscovered planet. That nobody has discovered, like way back, nobody has discovered, unless you believe all this nonsense about Sumerians knowing about Neptune and Uranus and Nibiru centuries before anybody else knew about them. So and that idea of being contacted by ancient extraterrestrials in the past, then for me as a mathematician, the kind of very obvious reason why you can be pretty confident we didn't is our mathematics, that surely the extraterrestrials would be able to use ratios. If they can build spaceships and things, then surely their mathematics would be advanced enough so you should write something like 5/7. Especially if they're beings like us, which is the hypothesis about Anunnaki. They're not strange, weird, blobby clouds that might be able to create spaceships just by materializing them or something. If they're beings like us and they with culture and civilization like us, then surely there's a good chance, at least, that they would have got as far as ratios. And then if they had ratios, then why did we not learn ratios from them? And because the thing is, the Sumerians didn't know how to write ratios. Their mathematics was not advanced. So this Sitchin chap is saying that they had this very advanced astronomy and they knew about Nibiru thousands of years ago. But they didn't have very advanced mathematics. It was advanced for their time. They knew certain bits and pieces of geometry. They knew that a 3, 4, 5 triangle is a right angle. So they didn't know about Pythagoras generally. they were able to work quite well with dividing into equal parts. So you divide something into 15 equal parts, and into 4 equal parts, and equal 7 equal parts, and they could actually work with those together and say you get a fourth part plus a seventh part plus a 15th part. But they hadn't figured out they could say something like 11/15ths. So they just never thought about saying 11 of these 15th parts and treating that as a number. So their mathematics, it seems quite bizarre and strange to us, but they just had this kind of mental block, and we may have mental blocks as well in mathematics that we can't see either. It's like mathematics is like that. It's quite strange how sometimes you can't see things that and then later on it becomes obvious to everyone. And so if we look back in the past, we find that there are these big mental blocks in the mathematics of the past that nobody in the entire civilization for entire centuries, and even for thousands of years sometimes, they never thought of the idea of a ratio. They never thought of the idea of zero. They never thought of putting negative numbers into equations. Ideas that seem absolutely obvious to us. And so if we've been contacted by extraterrestrials, then surely our mathematics wouldn't be as primitive as it was back in the Middle Ages. Some of, just even a little bit of that, like sort of things that you learn in kindergarten, or not kindergarten, I don't know what you call it in the States, junior school, primary school, up to age 11 school, even that level of maths, surely we'd have got just a little bit of that maths from them. So for that reason alone, I have other reasons as well, I don't think we've been contacted by extraterrestrials in the past. Which isn't to say that there was maybe a lot of wisdom back then, but not in the form of mathematical understanding. And their astronomy wasn't advanced either. So people go on and on about how advanced the Mayan astronomy was. Well, the Mayan astronomy was advanced compared with the other astronomy of its time, but it's not advanced compared with our astronomy now, when you can predict an eclipse track and say exactly where it's going to go, exactly how wide the track is. You can say to a kilometre where to stand to see the eclipse. You can say how many minutes it's going to last, or seconds. And the Mayans couldn't do that. None of the ancient astronomers could do that. So when you hear all these things about how marvellous their astronomy and maths was, well, I mean, up to a point. It was marvellous for their time, given they didn't have telescopes, and they didn't have very good mathematics either. And they had rather primitive mathematics. They couldn't do calculus. They had no idea what orbits were. They didn't understand how the planets moved in the sky. And given all those handicaps, then their astronomy was pretty good. It was quite surprising how much they managed to predict, given such huge handicaps. So that's how to think about ancient astronomy. Pretty good, given what their situation they had to work with. But there's no evidence at all of some advanced, no evidence at all that they had calculus, for instance. But as I said, no evidence that back in the Sumerian times they even had ratios. That goes up, and then certainly no idea about endless decimals and things like that. That was another very late idea. So anyway, and what else is there to talk about? I don't know. I could go on and on about all sorts of things, but anyway, just please. I'm not really sure what to say, because no matter what I say, I still get people saying that they believe in this Nibiru, and I can't think what it is that is making you believe in it when it's such a nonsensical idea. All I can think is just that you've seen it a lot of times, and it's just basic repetition of the idea. That's about the only reason. So I don't know if you've got any coherent reasons why you think that there is such a thing, then do talk about it on my blog. But I mean, it's continually asking me, please tell me that Nibiru isn't there. I've already said it isn't there. It's nonsense, and I can't really do much more. Just repeating that over and over is it's really going to do more than it did the last 4 or 5 times that I said it. So in order to move this forward, you need to think a little bit about why it is that you still think that there is Nibiru, and despite all this about it being nonsense. And why do you believe these people who are very They're very, very poor scholars. They have no idea about citations. They're just making things up, and it's all humbug. They've no idea about astronomy, and they're very, very poor in the area of scholarship. They don't know how to check sources. They don't know how to verify whether what they say fits the sources. They just basically just write anything that comes to their head, and then they say this is what our researchers have found. But they're not researchers. It's just humbug and making things up and writing them down, and just out of their head and imagination. Anyway, any questions? Do say. Thank you.